Today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023, and in this video I'm going to start by reading Isaiah chapter 39, and then I'm going to really briefly go through some examples of train wrecks and the idea of train wrecks in times past. It's very interesting. So first, Isaiah chapter 39. This is a very interesting chapter of Isaiah. I say that a lot, but I really mean that with this chapter. It's short, but the things that happen in here are very strange. So let's read. At that time, Merodach Baladan, and it has one of the craziest names in the Bible, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he had heard that he had been sick and was recovered. And Hezekiah was glad of them, and showed them the house of his precious things, the silver and the gold, and the spices and the precious ointment, and all the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house, nor in all his dominion, that Hezekiah showed them not. So already this is so strange to me. So Hezekiah was sick, he prayed, God told Isaiah the prophet to go tell him that, okay, you're not going to die anymore, you have 15 more years to live. And so news spreads. I'm sure people knew that he was going to die, and then they hear, oh, actually, I'm all better. And so people sent him presents, or a present. It's kind of weird that they don't say what it was, and letters, multiple letters. And so my mind just goes to public relations and schmoozing and all that kind of stuff. And Hezekiah said, hey, come check out my kingdom, and showed him everything. And that's not normal. Normally, you keep your treasures to yourself. You don't want your enemy to know, your potential enemy, to know all of the things that you have. That isn't a normal thing to do. To open up all your safes and say, hey, check this cool thing out. Oh, check out all my gold. Check out all my silver. That's not a normal thing for people to do. And so it really stands out to me. Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah, and said unto him, what said these men, and from whence came they unto thee? And Hezekiah said, they are come from a far country unto me, even from Babylon. And maybe he was impressed. I'm guessing that he was impressed by these people. It's like, these exotic Babylonians. Then said he, what have they seen in thine house? And Hezekiah answered, all that is in mine house have they seen. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not showed them. Then said Isaiah to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord of hosts. Behold, the days come, that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in store until this day, shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. So all of their treasures are going to be carried away to Babylon. And that's exactly what my mind was thinking right when I read that the first two verses. I was like, why would you do that? Why would you invite these strangers into your house and show them where all of your precious things are? That's asking for somebody to come and rob you. But let's keep reading, because it's very strange. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Eunuchs are big, so important, and especially Babylon. And we live in Babylon today, and eunuchs are still important. You know how they say that back in the days, the actresses were actually played by men? But that's kind of a joke, because it's like, just because it used to be like that doesn't mean that it's not still like that. Do you know the Mitch Hedberg joke about, I used to do drugs, I still do, but I used to too? That's the same type of joke when they say, well, did you know in times past the female celebrities or the actresses were actually played by men? They still are today. Eunuchs are still big. I think some cultures are just from groups of eunuchs, especially in Asia. Like Japan just seems like specialized eunuchs that ended up forming their own society. Anyways, this next verse, the last verse, is interesting to me. Then said Hezekiah to Isaiah, good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken. He said, moreover, for there shall be peace and truth in my days. Okay, it takes me aback that he would think that this is good, that all of his stuff is going to be carried away to Babylon, and not even just your stuff, the stuff that your fathers have, that for multiple generations have put together. And is this where the Ark of the Covenant was too? Is that a part of the riches at this point? I'm not entirely sure. Somebody more familiar with that type of thing would know, because nobody knows where the Ark of the Covenant is today, and it's probably somewhere, I would imagine. Maybe somebody tried to destroy it, I don't know. So, yeah, that's it for this chapter. Very short, but wow, doesn't it raise a lot of questions? Now, let's talk about train wrecks. I think that this is where the expression to watch a train wreck comes from. This used to be a spectacle. And there's a lot of information on this, so I'm going to go so fast through these things because I just don't have it in me today to go through excruciating details of things. So let me just quickly say my idea, because it goes along with the videos that I've been making recently, so I don't need to say it again. Just go back to my other videos if you want more talk about this kind of thing. They inherited all sorts of technology, and steam technology in particular. They had an overabundance of steam technology that they had to explain away or dismantle or get rid of. And this is a very convenient way for them to get rid of tons of old tech that they don't want to have around anymore. So here, let's watch the video. I'll go through some slides, but that's the gist of it. There was very recently a history reset, sometime in the 1800s, I believe, and they have to explain everything away or get rid of it.
Minnesota State Fair today to see the thrill of thrills. 2 speeding locomotives in a spectacular head-on crash. And here's one of them, the NRA Special.
I love they put names on them.
The other engine, named Old Man Depression, is starting too. Man, oh man, this is going to be the battle of the century, all right. The engineers put on full steam.
It's fun to see what hasn't changed, the depression thing.
Faster the drivers roll. Here she comes,
Ferris wheel.
right at us. Watch them come together. There it is. Look out.
Notice it was already on fire. They really made a spectacle out of it. They would put burning coals, douse things in gasoline. Okay, so really quickly, let me go through these slides. This is from an article on Atlas Obscura, so you can go look it up if you want. I mean, just type in this article to the article name to Google, you can go find it. This was a big thing in times past, and look at this beautiful photograph. Do you think that these people had to stand still for 5 minutes to get a beautiful photograph? Or what? This is late 1800s. Beautiful, detailed, crisp photograph of a huge crowd. There's no way that they got this crowd to stand still for a long period of time. They lie constantly about photo technology. And look, nobody's like, oh, what's happening? They all know that they're having their picture taken. Nobody seems impressed by the picture. They're all here for the train wreck. They lie constantly about how photography existed and was a known thing back in the day. I thought this child here without a hat and like no pants was strange. Wow, there's the train wreck. So you would pay money and go see a train wreck. So I don't want to read everything, but there are some little things that I want to point out. One man even lost an eye to a flying bolt. I call BS on that. There is a satanic ritual where they go blind in one eye. I don't know exactly what they do, but you see it today too. Illuminated individuals, people that fall into a lot of money all of a sudden, you'll see they have a dead eye. And in this story, this is called the Crush at Crash, is one of the most famous of these train wrecks, spectacles. That's where this happened, and they claim that it was the photographer who lost an eye to a flying bolt. I don't think so. I think that the photographer probably had his eyes in the camera and not being hit by a flying bolt. No one ran from the calamity. Actually, multiple people died. There's something really funny where they say that even though people died, everybody had such a great time at the train crash that they loved it, and they did like a bunch more the next year. Does that seem like something that would happen today, where they stage a spectacle and then people die and it's raining shrapnel on everybody and they're like, hey, that was awesome, let's do it again? So yeah, there's really not that much to say. This is just a topic that you can go research. somebody wrecked 146 locomotives. The sheer number of steam locomotives that they had makes no sense. And why would they be smashing them to pieces? They clearly still worked. They still function. Railroads were a big thing at the time. I'm sure that they could be using these things. It's that they had an overabundance of this stuff. One of the big themes of resets is an overabundance of stuff that needs to be explained away or hidden or destroyed. That is the major characteristic of a history reset, is that there's so much stuff around that they need to explain away or get rid of. Okay, so again, you can go look up this if you want. I'm not going to read a bunch of stuff. Look how they have thousands, though, of these things. Crush secured 2 old steam locomotives. Were they really old? I mean, yeah, I think that they were old, but they were still obviously working. There was no reason to smash them together. Number 999, which is 666 upside down, and 1001, painted them red and green. Yeah, they would plaster different names on the sides of them and make a spectacle of it. Sometimes they would have advertising written on the sides of them. See, the photographer is the one who's claimed to get hit by a bolt, which, okay, he was closer than a lot of people, it seems, but wouldn't the photographer have their eyes on the camera? And I would think that they wouldn't have their face exposed at the time of explosion, but who knows? For this spectacle, they drilled wells, they set up a circus tent, they built a jail. A wooden jail, not one of plaster or anything, you know. If you get the joke, you get the joke. So very strange. Wow, they trained in. So one weird aspect, something that I find really ironic about the crash at Crush, is it was a promotion by a railroad company to smash 2 locomotives together. And the way it worked is anywhere in the state of Texas, I think. I'm paraphrasing and just using what I remember from reading this stuff, so always do your own research and look into this stuff yourself. Fact check people. Okay, so the way that I interpret this is you could pay money anywhere in Texas or around this Katy line, and they would take you in a train to where they were going to do this crash. And I find that very ironic. It would be like, what if airplane companies decided, or one airplane company in particular, decided they were going to do a promotion where they'd fly you in to watch 2 airplanes smash together? It just seems why would you be taking a train to go watch trains smash together? It's very, very interesting. Oh, but the amount of trains they had, in one day, at least it seems to me, in one day, by 4 p.m., they had trained in 40,000 people. That, in and of itself, is spectacular that they had that ability to train in 40,000 people. Is it really in one day? Okay, so you can read about it if you want. There was a swift instance of silence, and then, as if controlled by a single impulse, both boilers exploded simultaneously, and the air was filled with flying missiles of iron and steel, varying in size from a postage stamp to half a driving wheel. And they say that a Civil War veteran was there, said it was more terrifying than the Battle of Gettysburg. It's because the Battle of Gettysburg is made up. The Civil War was made up, a fake Masonic war. So they love to say stuff like that. Of course, 2 trains smashing together in a spectacle is more horrifying than the Gettysburg War, or than the Gettysburg whatever. I know I cut it off there, but he kept talking about it. The Civil War was a big psyop, though. I thought this was hilarious. Crush was fired immediately after the crash, but after realizing that most people in attendance had a great time, they hired him the next day, and he worked there until they retired. Just the value of human life back then seems a little different. 2 people died. Oh, well, it was fun. They got to go check out a train explode. These days, I feel like that would sour the event for everybody, wouldn't it? If 2 people died, people wouldn't think that it was a good thing. Very common. John Connolly staged more than 70 wrecks and destroyed at least 146 locomotives. They had too much of this stuff. It makes no sense to try to make money by smashing two incredibly expensive locomotives together. Unless you just inherited them. If you had them for free, then of course, if you already had them, it's not like they had to build it to smash them together. They just inherited all this stuff for free, and it serves and they wanted to get rid of it anyways. They wanted to get rid of this stuff anyways. Every history reset begins with, oh my goodness, how are we going to get rid of all this stuff? Bingo, brilliant idea, smash them together. Connolly worked in the theater. Oh, worked in the theater. So that's it. I mean, I've mostly said everything. Train wreck. This is where the expression train wreck comes from, I believe. They really used to stage train wrecks as a spectacle because they knew people couldn't look away. But there was a hidden agenda. Get rid of the surplus of steam technology. Boston to Los Angeles, Tampa to Salt Lake City. He found ways to add to the spectacle, strapping dynamite, filling freight cars with gasoline and hot coals, so they would be engulfed in flames. We saw that. It was already on fire by the time. One wreck in 1932 featured Hoover versus Roosevelt. In the 1930s, they still had a surplus of these things that they were getting rid of. By the 1930s, they were starting to lose their popularity because wrecking old but otherwise useful locomotives was seen as wasteful. It wasn't even because they were... It was just the Great Depression, and they weren't in the mood anymore. The reason they stopped doing it is because people stopped being in the mood. There was another article, The History of Train Crashes Staged as Entertainment. I've already said a bunch of stuff, so I'll just flip through, see if there's anything interesting. Some strange stuff going on. Is this saluting the camera? They had to stop because of the shortage of metal during World War I, allegedly. But I think they were just running out of trains. Really? It doesn't... None of it makes sense. It doesn't make sense that they would be doing this. Unless they had a surplus. Who just has a surplus of steam engines? Oh man, I have way too many steam engines. Better start smashing them together. This is another interesting, probably a PSYOP. This one. Psychological operations, big events on the world stage in order to usher in societal change. That's always been a thing. I should do a video on the Hindenburg. The whole reason that they did the whole Hindenburg thing is because they wanted to stop lighter than air travel. Especially if they're going to do the whole ball earth thing and gravity, and they don't want people knowing about balloons. So all you have to do is make something lighter than air and it starts going up. You know, there's no gravity force to overcome. It's all buoyancy. This was really interesting. Fundamentalism and evolution meet on the tracks. This reminds me of the video I just recently did on the religious book from the early 1900s. I was talking all about volcanoes and outer space, and it just nearly gives me a headache knowing that this stuff has been going on for so long. Monkeyville, what do you know? Monetary gain does not appear to have been the motive behind a collision put on in Monkeyville. They had way too many of these things. Just sitting around, ready to be put on for any old spectacle. This was the time of the Scopes trial, and a train wreck was staged to typify clash in the USA between adherents of Bible and those of Darwin. Oh, what's the Scopes trial? Oh, I think I skipped it. There was something interesting. Maybe at the end I'll go see if I can try to find it. Because there was another interesting thing earlier. I'll go try to find. Okay, but anyways, they used two trains to talk about evolution versus the Bible. And I think it's funny that it's in Monkeyville, but Scopes trial is something that you could go research if you wanted to. I like how they try to make fun of the grammar of the quote too. They're trying to make the Bible supporter seem stupid. One train was labeled fundamentalism and the other evolution. Both ended up in a twisted heap of tangled metal, resolving nothing. Staged at Monkeyville. Okay, this is for future times, steamboat races. That's something I want to talk about later. Just the whole spectacle aspect of this stuff. They had way too much of this stuff. This time was wild. Train crashes. On Tuesday you could go watch a train crash, and then on Friday you could go watch steamboat races. It's like all that they were doing was crazy spectacle stuff. Oh, here's the one other thing. I didn't know what this was referencing. The Panic of 1893. That's another thing to go research. I'm not sure what that is. The Katy had been struggling to regain its financial footing following the Panic of 1893. So this is talking about the crash at Crush. And I guess Crush was the name of this person's name, which is weird. So yeah, the Panic of 1893, that's another thing I could go research. Alright, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. God bless everyone.